And we're live. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, everyone. Patrick here. It's Ground Zero Salem Mondays. I'm going to go stay with that title right now. I don't know what else to call this. I was thinking Manic Mondays.
After the Bengals?
Yeah, just another case of the Mondays a la Office Space. All of it just didn't feel right. So I'm just going to stick with GZS Mondays. You know why overthink things, which is kind of what I do, but I'm going to fight it. Marty, How are you today?
I'm quite well. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So you just got out of practice? Is that what you were doing earlier?
Nope. I have practice at 5.
Oh, we have practice later. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How's everything with Glorious Dead?
Glorious Dead is good. We just got done getting the master done for our second album called Cemetery Paths. And, I'm just finishing up the LP jacket and it'll all be submitted and hopefully done in time for our big show coming up in May in Kentucky.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
With Panopticon and, I can't remember the other band's name. Sorry, guys. Crap. I can't remember the other band. It's terrible, but
all good. I mean, you know, we're getting up there. The memories, you know,
memories. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, you know, how are things in your neck of the woods and shit like that. And I was like, what was the name of the town that Marty lived in? And I was Googling Bindrune Recordings because I think it said something, and then I was like, it just popped in my head, like Traverse City, dude. Like,
yep.
How long have you known this guy for? Like,
a couple years.
Yeah, a couple. Well, that was another thing that I wanted to bring up. It was like time flies, being a flat circle or whatever, and it's been almost 7 years that I've been doing YouTube metal videos, and I think you were around for a year or two before me. So
yeah.
Holy crap. That's like, that's a while.
Yeah. Time. You don't really think about the passage of time unless you have a child or you do YouTube. You start looking back at your content and went, oh my God, I've been doing this for this long. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, my son's age has been kind of like, you know, because they grow up so fast.
Oh, they do.
But it's I mean, kind of a trope thing to say, but yeah, they do. And I'm like, damn, Griff's going to be 7. That means my channel's going to be about 7 because they kind of came up at the same time. He was crawling when I started this. So I am also
my guy's about to turn 13, which is frightening.
Whoa. No shit.
3 years away from driving. Oh my God. He can't even.
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't want to get into it.
I have like very solid formative memories of being 13 still. Weird. Okay. I'm also streaming this on Twitch. I don't have any following on Twitch whatsoever. So I think it might just be kind of being thrown into the void. I just noticed when I commented, it had the little Twitch logo next to my. Oh, wait. No, it went into both. Okay. Well, whatever.
I need to look into that too. Twitch is the undiscovered country for me. I know people talk about it. I've never farted around with it. So I don't know.
I watched it and used it a bunch of times. A lot of the like people that I watch on YouTube that are more like political / drama react kind of folks, like kind of do both. What they usually do is like stream on Twitch and then chop it into smaller segments for YouTube. And I've watched stuff on Twitch. Personally, I'm not a fan as much of how the platform functions. And it's weird, I guess, just like with TikTok and everything else, like their algorithm pushes different things than YouTube's does, and who knows, you know,
yeah.
It's a different demographic. I streamed on it once. I streamed like just some video game stuff just to have fun with it. And I was like spinning records too. But it was a very high maintenance ordeal, thus me never doing it again. But wow. I'd like to eventually maybe do a gaming thing on it. I don't know. Like I've got a fair amount of free time these days, although I have been working more lately. So we'll see. Maybe I'm just like the idea of getting myself out there across a couple platforms. So
yeah, I agree. And it's, you know, we're trying to build up heavy metallurgy a bit. So I kind of want to expand and get as many eyes looking at it as possible. But it's just more crap to figure out. And I'm not a 16-year-old kid anymore. And I just don't have time to sort out all this stuff. Ben,
Yeah.
we're supposed to be getting the damn Panopticon to the plant. I'm waiting for Austin to finish the design for it. The Nechachwin, we're going to be putting out a tape of that first. I don't know. CDs, I know people, there's a small group of people screaming for CDs, and they just don't sell that great for us. And we don't have the money just to bank on a bunch of crap to sit in my basement, but we're looking into it. It's eventually. Hang in there. Panopticon will be coming sooner than later. That's all I can say.
There you go.
And hello everybody in the chat. It's good to see you.
Yeah, big shout out to Ben for being an avid YouTube commenter.
Yeah,
and
true
just
that.
being a dude that's wicked involved and that doesn't make videos. So I was texting with him the other night. And it's weird. I've known Ben now for like 6 or 7 years as well. Good Maina. Good dude from Maine.
Good to see Roger in there from Norway. Hey, what's up,
yep.
Roger? Good to see you.
Yep.
Hey, there's Eric.
Sir Eric Bauer. Yeah. Got some 27 people watching. That's very good. Happy about that. So I don't know. I guess to some extent I wanted to, and I know we've probably talked about this, and I don't remember it because everybody was hammered. But on the quarantine streams and stuff. But when did Bindrune start? Because it's been around for longer than a decade at this point, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's started in 2000.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay, so
23 years old this year.
23. Jesus. Okay. What were some of the earlier releases, and what was your impetus to start the label?
It was started by myself and Scott Candy. He's a friend of mine, childhood friend of mine. He moved out to California and then located up to Portland. He also had Chronic Mind distribution, and he is the noise artist Grunt Splatter for those that may or may not know. Him and I were also the editors for Worm Gear Zine. So when he moved away, we figured we'd like co-start a label because it'd be something we could do together. I was still doing the zine at the time, and he was still doing Chronic Mind distribution, selling noise records and stuff. And we just felt it was a way to keep connected and working towards something, supporting the arts type of thing. And
sure.
Our first release was the first Shroud of Despondency album for Eternity Brings No Hope. And then what was our second one? Oh, the second one was Australia's Misery's Omen. We put out their EP and their 7-inch on one CD. It was self-titled. What the hell was after that? Morthond was after that, which was a one-man black metal band from California, I believe. And then it went to Celestial Desolate North. It was a Funeral Doom type of project. Tanner Anderson, who went on to do Equii and most recently Majesties. Yeah, so it just kind of kept going from there. And it, 23 years, this should be a big, humongous force, I guess. But it's just myself and Austin Lunn. He jumped in. He's kind of helping out with stuff and art and A&R type things, and I'm packaging and doing all the heavy lifting as far as this side goes. So what's up?
There was a brief little freeze up there, at least on my end, but it's
okay. Right on.
Do you I hopefully this isn't too much of a typical question or one of those things. It's like, dude, do I have to answer this? Do you have a favorite release that you put out, or at least like a handful of things that you're like super stoked that you put out?
Yeah, I think my most favorite thing we ever released was the first Woden's Throne, Loss, the full length.
Oh yeah, that's a great record.
Absolute favorite. Those guys to me were like the Emperor of England. They just had that. They did it all right as far as musicianship and working keyboards in very majestic symphonic black metal. The Panopticon albums have all been really special. Nechachwin, everything Nechachwin's done has been a joy to be a part of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good stuff. A lot of fun. They're very expensive. Anybody who wants to start a label these days, they need to have their head checked.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm doing this distro, and so far it's going good. I'm just like selling out. It's like I didn't want to bother with the Discogs because I didn't want to deal with the fees and some of the people that buy stuff from it. And I didn't want to deal with eBay because I've done that before and it's kind of a nightmare. So I just opened that big cartel. But I've been kind of gingerly exploring, like just maybe doing tapes. So I've been talking to a few bands, old Syracuse 90s bands, where I'm like, this might be cool if this got reissued. Starting out on cassette, just home dubbed, nicely done, because I know how to make nice ones from when I used to be in bands and do demos and stuff, but like home dubbed, and then maybe professionally manufactured, and then maybe like one-sided 12 inches of these old like metallic hardcore demos that I like. But I mean, we'll see. I'm in the middle of kind of like trying to figure stuff out financially and talking to people that played in these bands and stuff like that and seeing if they're cool with it. We'll see if it happens.
Well, still, it also, if you go to like a production company called Cryptic Carousel, they do pro tapes. It's not that expensive to do tapes. If you do like 100 run or something, plus you're going to get real sick of dubbing shit. Real sick,
I know.
Real quick, and you're going to start going through tape decks, and it's going to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
so
I know. I mean, it would only be a run of like 20 to 35 if I was to do that. And I also have a friend who, the guy who does that, I talked about it in my last update, or the update before that, a dude who does like, he bootlegs a lot of like punk and hardcore demos from the 80s. And I shot him a message and I was like, so what do you have one of those like complicated, like old, cause I've seen them on eBay. They're like 4 tape, like high speed dubber things. He's like, I hate those. I have a system set up where I have like 8 dual cassette decks all like daisy chained together. It works awesome. Blah, blah, blah. I can show you how to set it up. And I was like, that's cool. And maybe I'll do that. And he's like, also, if you want anything duplicated super cheap, I'll do it for you. So that's an option too. If I do this right now, I'm just trying to get this, just the small, humble distro off the ground. That's all I'm really doing at the moment. But I've got a few.
I've also found that, there was a time where I'm like, well, I need to diversify the distro stock a bit more. So I started like buying things wholesale from other labels. And it's just, you're not making a lot of money doing that. You're just flipping stuff essentially for a couple dollars. It's not the best thing to do is to release something and trade it to other people. But
that's,
that's a tough, it's a tough thing,
I've gotten, and that's what people have said a few times. Like, that's it was Nate Wilson, actually, when I put the coming soon thing, he said to me, like, you should try to release some stuff and trade it. And I'm like, yeah, probably, I'm looking into a few things. We'll see what pans out and what doesn't. I mean, but breaking even and just getting new releases that are cool and flipping them, that's kind of the idea, and also kind of like, for people that are the small amount of people that I talk to via my platform, I have a specific music taste, and there's like some great records that I want to be like, hey, you like this newer stuff, you really need to hear the Citizens Arrest LP and like have that available for cheap.
Right.
And thank the heavens that Ebullition Distro still exists. Their website looks exactly the same. And and they still have they brand new releases every week, super cheap prices, and they have all that. A lot of the old school stuff that I love, that I want to be part of my brand of distroing stuff. So.
And it's cool because, I mean, your brand, it's a pretty diverse swath of extreme music. It isn't just, you're not just the death metal guy or the black metal guy. You got pretty extensive knowledge of punk and hardcore and other stuff as well. It's cool. And it's kind of, you're not pigeonholed. And the way things are set up for you over there, you're not really pigeonholed to any one genre. So it's a good place to be in.
I like to think of myself as like true ancient crossover, like real. What are you, man? I'm crossover.
Yes.
What? Sounds terrible. So the Metallurgy series, that's been going on for a while, right? About how long now? Over a year.
Couple years. Yep.
And what was your impetus for wanting to start that? Just wanted to branch out from just doing collection updates and stuff, I'm assuming, and probably some
Well,
other reasons.
I think the enjoyment of streaming happened during the pandemic time. I mean, obviously the StreamYard software popped up out of nowhere and was free, and it allowed us, when everybody was locked down, a bunch of friends to get together and bullshit and drink and be stupid for 8 hours, which was basically a full work day for most people. And that was fun. And then reconnected with Alan Coulson. We've known each other since the Metal Maniacs days. Metal Maniacs used to have a message board that he was known as Knight's Blood on there, and I would talk to him I didn't know his name other than Knight's Blood. I knew him by Knight's Blood.
You should bring that back.
Yeah. Then we just talking, interacting on the message board, and then Worm Gear, my zine at the time, we started our own message board. When the Metal Maniacs message board died, some of those people went over to the Worm Gear board, and he stayed, on there and was always commenting on our stuff and reading our stuff and a fan of our stuff. And then after that, we just kind of lost contact. And then it was during the pandemic, he dropped me an email saying, "Hey, do you remember me? My name was Knight's Blood on the Metal Maniacs." Like, oh man, it was like me, reconnecting with a lost friend, even though we've never met face to face. And he started up a channel, and we did a video on US power metal together.
Oh yeah.
And it was just a good, we had a good connection, and it was a lot of fun. And one thing I learned from the 8-hour long streams was that, it was fun to do that. No real plan or purpose, just to sit around and bullshit. But if we actually had a show where we had a focus, a topic, or maybe one or two guests, it could be an interesting conversation. And, coming out of the zine and magazine era, this is kind of like the new modern day zine to me. This is, I guess, would be the continuation of Worm Gear in a strange kind of way. And it's just good to have Alan on. I mean, we're different, a little bit different personalities and talents and stuff, and it just works. It works. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Great. We've been bringing on a lot of fun, awesome people that we've, fortunate enough to be friends with over the last few years, and it's continuing to grow, which is amazing for all the people that watch it. Yeah, we all miss Jason Hook. Jason Hook is a stubborn curmudgeon that needs to get back to work. But anyway,
get back to work.
Get back to work making videos.
Yeah, you're supposed to be working class hardcore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, it's been a lot of fun, and this year we're hoping to grow it even more. So we got some new stuff coming up here very, very soon that we're pretty excited about, and hopefully more guests and more interesting things.
Yeah,
just trying to entertain people,
I definitely am going to see about switching with somebody, or because on the Friday streams, I'm working. I work evenings, but I did that. I legitimately switched hours with somebody to be on that Analog Attack stream. So I'm sure I can do the same for you guys. I mean, it'd be fun.
Well, we'll have to plot it out. Well, just let us know, and we'll try to get you scheduled. The calendar is kind of filling up for this month. Next month is starting already. So
right. Yeah, I need to talk to you about that off air too, and see what days you guys are still, so I can, plot ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great to have you back. Absolutely.
How did you meet Austin from Panopticon? Because he's helping run the label now and everything. Yep. Was he already doing Panopticon at that point, or was it earlier?
He was. It was funny. He's been a fan of Bindrune for a long time. Obviously, I didn't know who he was. I never even heard his band before I met him, to be honest. And there's another guy who's dear friends with, Jack, who lives here, and he used to live down in Ferndale, Detroit area. Moved up here. He was also a supporter of Bindrune, buying stuff every once in a while, and he moved up here. And then Austin and his family came over. They were visiting one day, and I got an email saying, "Hi, my name's Austin. I'm in town. I'm in Traverse City. I'd like to buy something and maybe have a beer," type of thing. And I'm like, all right. And this can always go one way or the other. So he bought a shirt or something, and come to find out, the Jack's house was just like a mile down the road from my house. So I'd be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll go over there. Went over there, and there are a couple old crust punk guys and their wives, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. We hung out, drank beers, and talked music and metal and punk, and we just got to be friends. And every time he would come, we'd hang out. He'd come to Travers, we'd hang out, and eventually he's like, well, I'd love to be on Bindrune, but I don't know if you want to go political. And I'm like, I don't care about that. I'll go political. That's fine. You're the one going political. I'm just putting it out. And
yeah,
of course, as Panopticon's progressed, it's gotten a little bit less political and more personal, but still the heart of it still comes from that space as well. But yeah, I mean, we're dear friends. I talk to him every day. Good friend. And he's kind of jumped in and helping out with the label and stuff. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I actually, because I remember them being around in the early 2000s. I think they had a tour diary in either Heart Attack or MRR, I believe. But his old band, The People's War, I've cut myself off because I have other endeavors right now. But late nights, especially working nights and everything, I'd be like, well, what can I run into on Discogs? Like, what am I going to find? And I would find, people selling their collections and everything. And there were a couple really good, mostly punk leaning distros. And I think I was picking up a bunch of like Flat Earth record stuff. So like that label from that Bradford, UK scene with Doom and all those kind of related bands. I talked about that band Stalingrad recently. I think it was from the same order. The guy had the People's War 7-inch. And I was like, you know what? Like, this is a couple of bucks. I'm going to snag it. And somebody else from another order that I was putting together had the demo. So I bought both.
See, I've not heard the demo. All I have is a 7-inch.
I've not listened to the demo yet, but I listened to the 7-inch a couple of times, and it's great. I mean, he was still in Memphis at that point, right? Do you know?
I believe so. Yeah, because he was born in Tennessee and moved to Kentucky. Yeah.
It's great. It kind of reminds me of stuff coming out of there at the time. It's like ripping fast, but kind of noisy and dark, hardcore that brings to mind like Death Threat, One Word Death Threat, and some other stuff like that. And it's great. It's a super good record. I'm like, man, I wish there was like one more recording from this band, but it's crazy because I knew of that band for their existence, and now it's now he's doing and has been doing Panopticon for some time.
Yeah.
So yeah, great stuff. That 7-inch. Check it out.
Yeah, it is really good stuff. I don't think they did anything beyond that. I know he went on to a death metal band.
Yep.
What the hell was the name of that band?
I looked it up like a week or two ago, and I have no memory for this sort of thing anymore.
Oh, God, it drives me crazy. Hold on one second. Well, you can keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and I don't know, the involvement of the political side of what he's singing about, especially on records like Kentucky, is done in this really singular, thoughtful way that I think his popularity of his project is very much well earned.
Anagnosis was the name of the death metal band.
Yeah. I'll have to check them out next.
Yep.
Because I think they went on without him after he moved or something.
Yeah. They're still a thing as far as I know. But yeah, no, he's really. I don't think he even knows how Panopticon rose to popularity, other than he has worked. I mean, he put a band together and he goes out and he travels the world. He plays fests and he goes where he's done little mini tours of Europe a couple times, and so he's getting out there. He's played Roadburn. They've done the work, but I think it was Kentucky was the one that really got the ball rolling for them. Combining the bluegrass with the black metal, the U.S. black metal thing was very much an eye-opening experience for a lot of people. Really resonated with a lot of people. And he's an anarchist, so it kind of the political stuff and the it was a good fit. It was a good fit for what he was doing, for sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume this is probably being facetious. You can like Panopticon and you can like Wolves in the Throne Room, but you can't have both.
Sure you can. It's all good. I have them both in my collection. It's all good.
I think they have a very big cross demographic, I would think.
Yeah. I think they share fans, I'm sure.
Sure, they're boys.
Yep.
What have you been consuming in terms of entertainment lately? Any good movies or series? Books?
Music.
Just
I've been
music?
trying to work on music again for myself, and I've been listening to a ton of music. I've been trying to set aside time at the end of the day to sit and spin records, which I kind of gotten out of. I kind of gotten out of the loop on as I vegged out and would just zoom into endless hours of YouTube abomination. Anywhere from Bigfoot documentaries to people popping zits. It's like a sponge that a hole you fall into, and it's like 3 a.m. and you're still watching absolute garbage and wondering why.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to listen to music, spin records, and
I got to get back on that. It's crazy because I mean, so much of my life and so much of what I do in terms of hobbies and all that kind of stuff is centered around music, and I buy it still like crazy. But the actual time I dedicate to listening to it is a little bit out of sync. Like it's the percentage is low because I'll do the same thing. I'm like, oh, I need to watch another video with somebody making fun of Ben Shapiro. It's like, why do I need to do this? Like, I'm just like, at this point I should get it. It's like, this guy's a dick. Okay, why don't you listen to that pile of CDs you just bought?
I think we get to be our age and we're so locked in and obsessed with buying physical media. I think that collecting, actually going around purchasing, takes precedence over consuming it, listening to it. We have more joy in the purchase and the acquisition and getting the packages. And because I was looking the other day, I've got like underneath my stereo, I've got like almost a 2-foot stack of records that I bought anywhere from a year to 2 years ago. I still haven't spun.
Wow.
And that to me is fucking stupid. It's so stupid.
I don't go that long generally, but like that big, cause that's the thing. I'm a bit of a vinyl cheapskate, if you will.
Me too. I've gotten to the point where $35 records is too much. It's too much. I get it, but it's too much.
But I like there's certain, I mean, a lot of OG presses. Well, first of all, a lot of the death metal stuff, that side of my collecting and my musical tastes, I acquired all the stuff I wanted of that on one format or the other ages ago. Like I've got all that early earache stuff and most of that. So like lately with this like UK crust stuff, a lot of this stuff is cheap. So I'm like, oh cool, I'm gonna snatch that up. I just don't have the amount of time to listen to it that I used to. And I also find that like just at work, I could throw an earbud in and stuff like that, but that kind of sucks. So
yeah,
it really has to be dedicated time in front of the stereo, you know? So,
yep. And at half the time I find myself as I'm listening to them, flipping through the phone, watching reels or shorts as I'm doing it. I'm like, God, why am I doing this? I just so stupid. I can't just sit and focus on records anymore. I have to have constant input of garbage. And that's part of the addiction of the cell phone and technology these days, I suppose. Sure. But and I guess I have watched a few shows. I was a big fan of the Ring of Power, the Lord of the Rings thing. I know people had problems with it. What else?
Really? Yeah, I haven't seen it,
but what the hell's the Star Wars? Endora?
Oh,
enjoyed the crap out of that.
Yeah,
very good. So those are shows. I watch shows. I don't watch movies much anymore. I just don't have the patience to sit and watch movies.
Yeah, I do. I find myself like really wanting to cram in the horror movies, in the fall, which is, kind of a basic ass thing to do, but I mean, it works, feels good to do it. That's
kind of a nostalgic thing. I was way more into horror when I was a kid than I am now.
Me too, actually. That's the only time of year I really feel compelled to watch it. Like this whole new wave of crust, I'm reading the comments.
Me too. It's
wave of crust. Defy the curse. No, I have not. If they're crust, I'll probably dig it. But this new wave of horror, namely, I forget the director, the studio, but like Midsommar and all that stuff, it's just not my that kind of shit is just not my steez, you know. So I haven't really cared about that stuff very much. I find myself, I mean, my wife and I just seem to hop on to whatever streaming kind of show is hot. Like we watched all of Wednesday like a week or two ago, and yeah, it's definitely geared towards like teens, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was one of the better things Tim Burton's done in goddamn ages.
Oh, that's a Tim Burton thing. See, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very like, hey, there's a school for weirdos. Like it's very like Harry Potter, you know, like that kind of style. But it was fun for what it was, you know. So, I mean, watched that. We watched that Boulet Brothers Dragula reality show and shit like that. Like I keep it light nowadays. I don't really, you know, watch that much real crazy stuff, you know. Just whatever we can find. So
a lot of good stuff in the chat. I don't have one turned on. Someone has asked Iron Flame album recently. Are those your boys, Marty? No, I mean, Andrew from Iron Flame is also in Nichachuan. So yeah, friend, super awesome guy, masters my albums and great dude, super talented musician.
this death metal until death.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Kyle. Let's see what else. Did you have like, I know you're a big sci-fi dude. Do you have like certain classic movies or books that you kind of hold in high regard? Like, do you go back to the 70s with stuff like Silent Running and like that kind of shit?
You know, I don't mind that, and Logan's Run, and I mean, I'm a 60s Star Trek fan. I was born in the 70s, so I grew up watching Star Trek reruns. And so Star Trek, Star Wars, I was, you know, my mom took me, my first movie I ever went to was Star Wars. That was in 77. So yeah, that pretty much sealed the deal. I'm a Star Trek and Star Wars dork. And, you know, I like, you know, horror type movies like Event Horizon, which is set in space, Alien, you know.
Oh, Event Horizon's great. I love that movie.
And then a bunch of other, you know, like sci-fi type shows like oh my god, me and Eric were just talking about the other day. The Expanse, absolutely killer show. Sci-fi and fantasy are pretty much it. And I you know, Lord of the Rings stuff, hobbits, elves, laser guns. I'm all that's, you know, dorked out for that.
You know what was pretty fun that we also just wrapped up was the Willow show on Disney Plus.
I've been meaning to watch it.
Warwick Davis still out there, still doing it.
Yep.
It's good. I mean, it's definitely it captures that like what kind of thing about the original Willow, where some of the actors are British, some of the actors are American. Nobody's attempting to sound period appropriate.
Yeah.
Some of the clothing is like, is that like a Assassin's Creed hoodie? Like, what are you wearing? Like, it's odd because it just feels like not completely set in a medieval fantasy setting, and I kind of like that about it, but it's also something you have to firmly take with a big old grain of salt.
Yeah.
But it's a cool plot. It's fun, you know. It's like a ragtag band of misfits kind of thing, and they do continue on the whole plot from the movie.
It's on my list. That, and you know, I got to catch up with the superhero stuff too. I do watch a lot of superhero shows. Ben NG Firefly was rad. It was Firefly in the movie Serenity. I was a big fan of the Joss Whedon dialogue.
Yep.
Amazing show. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Pat. I wanted to catch that before it was off the screen.
No, absolutely. I had a friend back in Massachusetts that was also from Syracuse that looked exactly like Jane.
Oh, right.
But he had no awareness of the show whatsoever. No, I think it was actually Paris, my friend Paris, who pointed out, he's like, he looks like Jane from Firefly. Every time he just like walked to a room, we're like,
can't unsee it. Yep.
So yeah. Did you? I know that this whole content creation thing that we've been involved in for over half a decade at this point has been pretty enriching to our lives. Like, obviously, I've made a lot of good friends. Present company included, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Have had some good conversations. We've been through some not so wonderful times in our lives and had other people there having our back and everything.
Yep.
What are some things that aren't great about it for you? I'm curious, like running a channel, doing the live stream stuff. Like, what are some things that you're not a fan of?
You know, God, nothing really bubbles to the forefront right away. I mean, you know, there's some people and personalities out there that might be a little less than desirable, but you know, for the community we've built, you know, between us, you know, between me and yourself and, you know, Eric from High Defamation and Brain Smasher and Get Into It, and you know, all of our dudes. It's Matt from the Dark Path, Aaron, Metal Theologian. It's been super amazing. And then the community we're building with Heavy Metallurgy. It's looking at our demographics. The people that watch that show are typically old
Yeah.
or older. And maybe that's why we don't have as much drama, because there's not a lot of kids on there causing a ruckus. But it's mostly a really great community. And I've encouraged a lot people watching, you know, to go start their own show, their own channel. There's something about it. I never thought the first day I turned on my phone and started talking into the abyss that it would mean anything or do anything, but it becomes addictive quite quickly once you start getting comments, and then you start seeing your sub count go up, and then interaction, and then you start to get kind of friendly with the people that are watching you, and it starts to feel like an extended, set of friends. And it's just kind of capitalizes on how strange this modern day, the internet, how people meet and interact is changed quite a bit. It's driven us maybe a little more, maybe a little too comfortable at not leaving our homes, but there is a benefit to it. And it's just one of those things that I've gotten friends like yourself and other guys too. I hope to hang out with at some point. It'd be great, but we'll see.
We will. We're trying. So we bought tickets to that Panopticon gig. We'll see, because Amanda's nephew is graduating high school. And now she's like, oh crap, I think the graduation party, because they live in Southern Ohio. She's like, I think the graduation party might be on the day of the gig. And I'm like, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's, a gig isn't really necessarily the most proper way to hang out. It's fun. It'll be fun, whatever, but I'll probably be a little nervous, and we got that to do, and then manage our gear. I'm going to be torn because there's going to be a lot of people out there that I'll know for this show, but I won't be able to properly hang out, like Kellen and his wife are going to be there, and there's going to be a ton of people there. And
hopefully I can make it, because I want the experience. I want the experience of seeing Panopticon live for sure.
Yeah,
and you guys,
they're great. They're great.
And meeting everybody in person. What's interesting is I've met two people from this scene, and that's been Eric and Aaron.
Yep.
And it's wild, because I expected it to be jarring or weird, like seeing them physically in front of me. And it wasn't. It was just like, oh yeah, I can go boop.
Yeah.
not that I booped anyone. No booping.
Yeah. I'm a big hugger. I'd be giving out hugs and buying people beers. That's kind of the way that's going to go down.
I may or may not have hugged. That's remains to be seen. Allegedly, I gave somebody a hug.
That's all right. Hugs are good.
but yeah. So I don't know. I hope to run into more people in the future for sure. And it's odd also, it hasn't happened to me here, but there have been a few instances where people have recognized me in public. It just so happens that when I was really doing the YouTube thing, I wasn't going to shows that much, but I think, who'd I go see? I think it was Horrendous and Tomb Mold at Ralph's Rock Diner in Mass. And a few people were like, oh, I love the channel, man. And I was like, thanks. And also the chief songwriter behind Innumerable Forms. And I was really surprised about it, actually, because at that point, I think my channel only had 400 or 500 subs or something. And I'd known Justin from DFJ from so many bands, but Innumerable Forms and Magic Circle and Mind Eraser and all those bands, I'd known him for years and years. And he was like, dude, I got to get you a copy of the LP, because I talked about the compact disc version. He's like, I really appreciate it. I was like, man, people from my real life watch my channel, because at that point it was pretty small. So
yeah, that's run into me a few times. at the last couple shows that Glorious Dead played, there were people coming up to me like, "Oh, I also watch your show. It's really cool." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And these are just local people that I should know but don't know. Traverse City isn't a huge town, but I still don't know everybody, and it's growing so much. But it crops up, and me and Parker will go somewhere. It's like, "Dad, do you think anybody's going to know you here?" I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see." But taking him to see Halloween in April or May, so it'll like 4 days after the Louisville show. So it's going to be interesting to see him in a metal setting, see how he does.
Yeah, we still haven't taken. I've seen people bring like toddlers to gigs with like the big. I'm like, yeah, my Griff has issues with stuff that's like super loud sometimes,
Right.
and right now it's just kind of funny because Amanda and I will split the diff in terms of like what shows we want to go to, and we like a lot. We have a lot of like cross sectionality of like stuff that we both like, but it tends to be she's like, okay, I'm gonna go see Undying and Prayer for Cleansing. I'm like, okay, cool. Pick me up a Catharsis shirt, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go see Flower and Destruct. I tend to go to these kind of like either death metal or kind of crusty shows, and she tends to go to like the metalcore and kind of tougher like hardcore shows. So between the two, we both kind of go and do our own thing, but we do attend gigs together when we can. We went to that big Medium Well in Hell fest down here. It was like a 1-day fest with Inter Arma and Artificial Brain, and that was a fun outing for us and everything. So but I mean, I don't know. Yeah, like I don't think I'd bring Griff to a show until he was a little bit older. He just has no interest. He's just discovering music. He's really into Weird Al and Twisted Sister, which is the correct path. That was my path.
That was my path too. Yeah. No, and it's I figured with Parker, he'll be 13 then. I mean, he's as tall as I am at this point. It's ridiculous how tall this kid is. So he might even actually be able to buy. I don't know. He's so tall. If he's growing a beard by then, maybe he'll be able to buy beer. But no, that's not happening. I'm just kidding, everybody. Just kidding. That's not going to happen. Hey, Tom, what's going on?
Tom's the best.
Tom is the best.
Right. Happy to be your background noise. Your chill beats to work and study to, basically.
Hey, thanks, Stefan. You're too kind. Very cool.
Just kind of reviewing these comments here. Yeah. So Inter Arma. Yeah, I didn't catch them. We were pretty like tired by the end of the day. I didn't know the deal with them at all. If they're truly the greatest band ever, I'm regretting that. Artificial Brains, what's the name of the record? Infrared Horizons. That record's really good. I haven't heard the new one. Their former vocalist does that Heavy Hole podcast. We were talking about podcasts earlier, Marty. I'm a big fan of podcasts as well. I've kind of been working them back into my listening diet a lot lately. Most of the ones I listen to are kind of related to music in one way or another, though. Before I started doing this, there was a handful of podcasts that were kind of like inspirational to me, being a talking head on the internet, I guess. And Heavy Hole I got into after I started doing the channel, but it's a really fun, it was very educational to me because that dude from Artificial Brain was really into that like Long Island brutal death metal stuff.
Okay.
And not all of that I'm into. Obviously I loved Suffocation from way back when. But it was like all these bands like Afterbirth and all this crazy stuff where I was like, oh, okay. Didn't know about this at all because I wasn't paying attention to death metal really at the time.
That Afterbirth band is actually kind of doing some different stuff with the genre. We did one of their albums for an album club, and it was kind of eye-opening how open-minded and unique it was. Mixed in with the slam element,
Yeah, and that's the thing, like that brutal stuff and the slam stuff, it can be really lowest common denominator, like knuckle dragging bullshit that I don't care about. But when they add weirdness to it, there's a band from Jersey called Dripping that are real like sci-fi and like drug addled, but they have the cricket vocals and those kind of slammy sort of rhythms and stuff. I think Necroharmonic reissued a bunch of their stuff on like a dual CD, and then they have a full length, and it's so weird and like otherworldly. I'm super into that band, but obviously I'm pretty picky about stuff like that, which should be picky about everything, really.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how the more you collect, the less picky you get.
Yeah, Well, one thing that I've found with my collecting, and maybe you can speak to this, is that I find myself to be super critical about new bands exploring old sounds, and
Yeah.
like bands doing the OSDM thing, or new wave of heavy metal, or whatever the hell people are into these days. Where I'm like, I don't know, I don't need to hear a young band trying to do Obituary or blah 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 blah. But then I'll go onto the reissue labels, and I'm like, whoa, subpar death metal from the 90s? Well, that's a different story.
Right.
A band that
Yeah,
wasn't
isn't that
popular
funny?
for a
Yeah.
reason.
But the funny thing is, when we were in that time, the subpar shit from the 90s, I was burnt out on it. Subpar death metal drove me to black metal.
Yeah, and I
And
think that
yeah,
was the case with a lot of people. And I was into death metal until about 93 or 94. And then for whatever reason, I just burnt out on anything metallic, not just death metal, but like a lot of metallic hardcore. And all I listened to was like 3-chord fast early 80s hardcore punk and like goth music for like not forever, like a year and a half or so, and some
yeah.
industrial.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed out on all that super generic stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a certain strength to, like, there were a lot of second and third and even fourth tier bands specifically from death metal. There was so much. I mean, it was so oversaturated. But there was a lot of it that was very, very good. Because even if the bands weren't the most original, that a lot of them were really great players. And it was, I mean, the same way with thrash. Like I've been digging into all these like fairly generic thrash bands this year, and I'm like, oh, all right, cool. The Defiance demos, double CD. Let me at it.
And it's kind of funny how history does repeat itself, especially when it comes to art. When we're looking at music anyway, because I'm seeing this whole new OSDM thing. It's so oversaturated right now. I really am. I hate to say this. There's a lot of killer shit, and even the kind of average shit is killer. It's just they're all kind of drinking from the same trough, and it's only going to be a matter of time, before people's interests are going to start drifting. I think I could be wrong, but it's like we're driving us back to look up all these old, kind of tired sounding death metal bands from the 90s that we missed. Like you said, with new, like, woohoo, this is awesome. Back then it wasn't so much. Now it is. It's just because the status of the scene now is driving us back to that point in time.
I think there's
more nostalgia attached,
I think there's a thrill of the hunt kind of thing with like checking out digging up like the hidden gem kind of bands and just trying to see, wow, this is really good. Why wasn't this band bigger? And as far as the new bands go, specifically, well, you could really say any extreme metal genre, but I guess specifically I'll be talking about death metal in this instance. I think what I'd like to see more of, and that I have been seeing more of, is, okay, let's not do the turning one band into a genre thing so much anymore, guys. Okay. Like, first it was Entombed, and then it was Incantation. Then it was, lately it's been Morbid Angel, and that's all cool. And I think with Morbid Angel, you can do a lot more because they have a lot of different periods and that kind of stuff. But like, there's that band, Ecstasis, that had just an EP on Unspeakable Acts this year. And I've sung the praises of it on numerous updates. And I think they're from Seattle. They're from somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, if I'm not mistaken. And they sound like an old death metal band, but you couldn't say what scene they were from. You couldn't say what bands that they were ripping off or trying to ape. There's a Morgoth cover on it, but they don't really sound like Morgoth. There's another band called, I think it's Obscurity is the name of the band. I'm trying to remember. Obscene. I think Obscene it. It's an OB band.
Obscene. Yeah.
And they're also kind of like not directly a worship thing. Because just the whole like total effing worship stuff, I'm good. Like, I don't need to hear another band that sounds exactly. My one exception being that band Molder, who are more or less doing an autopsy kind of deal. And they're great. They're really, really, really good. They're a fun listen. They're a little bit more like, I feel like a little bit more upbeat. They have a little bit more like kind of a youthful energy than just like a straight up autopsy rip. So like, I'm into that, but not too many others lately, and that's relatively new with me. Like, I was completely fine with clone bands for a long time, but
sure.
They have
their place. And there's a lot of people, in here defending. I'm trying not to be shitty to OSDM because I do think it's awesome. Don't get me wrong here, But I mean, there's a lot of same going on, one band that kind of came from that I really kind of perked up my ears is that Morbific band. I have not heard their new album yet, but their debut, bunch of kids, and they weren't sounding like everybody else at the time. They sounded like an old school death metal band. There was riffs. That's just it. The OSDM is more sound and feel than riffs. It just really cave, like you're in a cave type stuff, where, Morbific were actually presenting riffs and interesting song stuff and songwriting. And
I mean, I'm still completely down for it because I'll always buy like 5 or at this point, I'm not buying every single record from that particular genre that comes out, but I'm at least buying like 5 to a dozen. And like, Undeath, like I'm totally into that type of stuff. Cause like you said, riffs, I want to hear catchy songwriting. That's why I like the Glorious Dead so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Like Frozen Soul is great.
Frozen Soul is great. They're very bolt throwery, but they're another band that I really think is doing it right. They're really good. Really good.
And not the one I wanted to show up. There we go. Ripped to Shreds. Also really, really good.
I have somehow evaded Undeath, and they've gotten so much praise. That probably is why I tend to, if tons of people are praising it, it makes me run the other way for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's, the Jason Hook in me.
Contrarian
bucking the system type of thing. But eventually I'll come around to it and be like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Of course, I'll come around to it when their shit's like super expensive to buy.
I don't think, I mean, their record came out on Prosthetic. Their full length on Prosthetic is the best thing I think they've done. I like all their previous stuff as well. But they involve that for me. And just the era that I came up in, they call to mind a couple of different bands, but there's a lot of that like very catchy, and they have a little bit of that atheist cynic kind of technicality, mostly with the bass, with the bassist being really good at what he does. It's not, it's not as involved technically as that stuff. There's also like a fair amount of like Bleeding era Cannibal Corpse. Like that record is, like it or not, it's full of hooks.
Oh,
and
totally.
I think they really
great songwriting.
I mean, they're from the same, they sprung up from the same soil. They're from Rochester. Cannibal was originally from Buffalo. I think they're very aware of that. You know what I mean? Yep. So, I mean, I think like that really speaks volumes to their success. And there's a few other bands too. Like I wasn't so into that new Vomit Forth that came out. I enjoyed it, but their stuff leading up to that, I was really all about. Like like I said, there's a few. I've just been seeing so much. I can't keep up with new death metal stuff. It's
hard to keep up with. It's such an explosion right now, but just being an old guy, get off my lawn type of shit. I think death metal deserves to have riffs. I mean, good riffs congeals into good songs. And when you're trying to model your death metal band after a sound, it's kind of a different ball game. It changes in that super low tuning where it just kind of forces you to play when you're tuned to like A standard, it dictates the way you play the guitar. It's just more low end crunching and, super simple riffs. And that's what a lot of these bands are doing. I love that sound. It's killer and it's fun to play, but you got to have riffs, man. Death metal's got to have riffs.
And grindcore and crust bands, that I feel like 22 was a banner year for crust in quite a long time, and really well done crust that would probably appeal to metalheads. Like that Hellshock record is fantastic. And it is, I mean,
it's a metal record.
It's kind of bolt thrower worship. Not in the same way that Frozen Soul is. They bring to mind that like stenchcore that was on Peaceville in the late 80s. It reminds me of Bolt Thrower, but you could say also probably Prophecy of Doom and deviated into like it's kind of in that realm of like metal being played by punks, more or less.
I really like the music and the production of that record. The guy's vocals, I like them. They fit with the music. It's just he sounds burnt out. It's like he's doing more of a gruff yell. Like the edge in his voice has kind of been fried over the years, which I'm sure is a distinct possibility that happened.
He's been at it for a hot minute for sure.
Yeah.
I want to go into my archives, and because I have a whole bunch of, I even have the demo from Hellshock, but I have a ton of their stuff. I want to revisit it. Yeah, that
I
was
got a
really
lot of
good.
catching up to do. I just got that record a couple weeks ago. I mean, you and Eric, we were talking behind in the dugout, one of the heavy metal heavy metallurgy streams, and I ordered it while we were talking.
Oh right. Oh yeah, that's right. I was talking to you.
Yeah. And I also got that Life record too. That's really good. Really crusty.
Oh yeah,
good
Life from
stuff.
Japan. Yeah, they're really great. There's that Rigorous Institution project that was like very Amoebics influenced. That shit's really good. And Decomp, who are Decomp are also kind of like stench crusty. They're kind of have a lot of that kind of sort of thrash metal riffing that, like, I don't know who would be a band that would used to utilize that. Probably like early Hell Crusher or Hell Bastard, somebody with hell in the name. But yeah, it's all that Pacific Northwest, like metallic crust kind of stuff. Seemed to just Blackwater just dropped bomb after bomb this year. They put out a lot of stuff that was really, really good. And their records are so cheap, which it's nice when
it's
you
commendable.
It's like, this is 20. How do you afford the overhead on this? This is like $20. Like,
yeah, it's getting to the point where putting out records. I mean, our next batch of records are going to be in the $30 range just because they cost so much to do anymore. And it kills me to do that. It sucks so bad. As a consumer, I'm largely avoiding, if I see a record that's $25, I'm thinking, woohoo, what a deal. You know, and that's not the way it should fucking be, man. It shouldn't be a single LP for $25, let alone 30 or 35. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know how fucking Century Media is even making money. Their LP prices are so stupid.
And it's not like the quality of their releases gets anywhere close to what they retail for. I mean, the records are fine. Don't get me wrong. They tend to have that reverse board kind of jacket, which I think looks nice. Yeah. But there's nothing. I mean, they're just an LP and like maybe a one sheet insert.
Yeah.
Double sided. Like I bought the new the latest I Hate God at Residency Records in Salem when I still lived there, just because I wanted that record. I was on a big like sludge, doom kick. And I wanted to support my friend over there. And I knew he was just charging what the asking price was. He's just trying to make the right business decisions. But it was like $45 at a record store. And I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm gonna pick this up. And it's crazy because like a year or two later, when these releases aren't new anymore, they're like $18.
I was gonna say, I mean, there's no way on any planet, Sanguis Sugabog is an $18 record all day long, not a $45 record. It just, I don't get it. They're pricing themselves out of the vital boon is what they're doing. And they're hurting their bands. These bands aren't going to sell as many records because they're so fucking expensive, but way it goes, man. Production costs have gone up. That's the way it is.
Well, and meanwhile, like my friend of mine, it's actually already in my big cartel for coming soon. I have the physical copies, but it's a D-beat band from Boston, kind of crusty D-beat band called Innocent that I really liked. My friend Ryan, it's his band. He put it out himself. That LP is selling for $18. And like, it's relatively bare bones, it's nice. It's black and white cover, glossy, one sheet insert, $18, like, I don't know. Like I said, I've been kind of, testing the waters and trying to do some pricing if I ever decide to reissue my own or reissue bands I like on vinyl. And for low quantities, it's a particularly bad scenario.
That's what happens. I mean, you get down to 250 or 300 copies, and depending on what you want to do with the art and all the little bonus thing, every little special thing you do, it tags on to the unit cost. So yeah, you keep it cheap and easy, then you might be a little bit better, but you don't start getting a break until you hit 500 and then 1,000. And I mean, you gotta start somewhere though,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why it's like tapes, maybe tapes. Even if like I said, we'll see where the distro goes with it. But
yep,
that's about it, really. I don't know. Have you spun anything today in particular that's you've been jamming?
Today, no, I have not. I'm working. Oh, I listened to a more recent Nargaroth CD.
Okay.
So I've been on a crusty black or a shitty black metal kick lately. So yeah, Nargaroth.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's one of those bands that I'm like, they were Norwegian or something, right? I don't know,
German.
man.
German.
Okay.
It's a newer one. I was surprised at how good it was. Produced well. Better songs. I don't know. I think he just signed to a bigger Season of Mist, so he must have got his shit together, and he's being less cult and a little more produced and big right now. So
that was weird. I went to this record store here that actually Alan mentioned, because I did an update a little while ago that was like, oh, I went to these, here's some of the Raleigh record shops I go to, and Sorry State being the banner, great, awesome one that I go to. Yep. But I mentioned going to a few others, and he's like, yeah, we used to do a whole run from this, hop from this shop to that shop to this shop, because Alan used to live here in Raleigh. And he's like, School Kids Records. And I was like, yeah, I went to that place. I guess it's been around forever, but they had a massive dedicated metal section that was all CDs. And there was like, it was like taking a step back in time, because it was all stuff from like up to like maybe the mid 2000s, but going back to the 90s. And there was no Dark Descent, like very little prosthetic. There weren't like a lot of like contemporary labels. Like it was only the big ones. Like it was only like Metal Blade, Seasons of Mist, and some of the other ones. I was like, this is weird. There's so much metal here. This is like, a 30-foot long metal section, and there's like maybe two things that I'd buy. I was like, oh well, I got like a cheap tribute to Anti-Cimex on vinyl. Oh, and I was like, maybe I'll come back to those like, mid-period Dark Throne CDs. I always wanted to own Hate Them and Plague Wheeler.
Hate Them is the last one I really loved by that band. I love that record. It's great. It's their last kind of black metal, raw, cool black metal albums. Really well written. Yeah. Simple.
So that was really weird to me. And I've also been kind of dipping my toe a little bit back into, again, I'm like very hyper self-conscious about my presence as a metal YouTuber and not knowing black metal very well. I'm extremely like picky, I'm definitely a big like first wave guy and stuff like that. But like I have been kind of digging a few of these newer symphonic bands, namely like Twilight Sorcery.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's cool.
It's fun. It's fun.
I listened to it because this morning I got out of work and it was actually like cold here in North Carolina. I had to bust out the scraper.
Yeah,
it was like thick frost, and I was like turning my seat heaters on in my car, and like, my hands were cold I was like, I wish I had gloves. I'm like, I'm gonna listen to Twilight Sorcery on the way home. So, what's funny about, I don't know if you've heard that record. It's
Is
cool.
It the new one? Is it the new one?
Yeah,
I'm thinking of Twilight Force. Hold on. I'm getting the Twilights.
Hopefully I have the correct Twilight here.
Symphony. Twilight Force is the melodic death metal with doom.
Oh, sorry, not Twilight Sorcery, Moonlight Sorcery.
Moonlight Sorcery. Not
Team Edward or whatever. Moonlight Sorcery. I have no memory. Like I was trying to remember these bands because I was talking about it with Matt last week.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this band, they're awesome.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know if it is a Necrolord cover, but it definitely looks like one.
Same color scheme.
Yeah, it's got that whole blue kind of thing. It's cool. It's this sort of very hearkening to the 90s symphonic synth laden black metal stuff, but they're these sweeping shredder solos all over everything. For a second or two, I'm just kind of like, this kind of reminds me of Metalocalypse or something, or like anime fight music or something like that. Cause it's got these like super flowery, like Yngwie solos, which is kind of, I mean, it's bringing something a little bit different to the table. So I kind of dig that about it. But at first it was a little abrupt. Like I wasn't expecting like these gorgeous kind of like solos and stuff.
When you said Twilight, I thought you meant the band Twilight Force, which is an incredibly cheesy Swedish power metal band. It's like Rhapsody. They dress up like a Dungeons and Dragons character. You got a dude dressed up like an elf.
Yep.
And I get very excited about shit like that. One of their albums, I was looking through the insert, and they're all decked out in their D&D stuff, and it says, "We would like to thank all of our girlfriends." I'm like, you guys don't have any girlfriends. this is this is a lie, isn't it? There's no way that you have girlfriends. No way. But anyway, I was very excited there for a second. I thought you were listening to Twilight Force. Anyway,
I want to check them out now.
yeah, they're cheesy and awesome. Yeah, it's like
This
Rhapsody.
this place is great, nice price. It's weird. They get a lot of like new used arrivals in week by week. And if I was a little bit like less careful with money lately, I would spend a lot more money. Like I saw they had that Captain Beyond, that proto metal band. They had like a first pressing of their album there with like a lenticular cover, and it was pretty decent price. I always walk out of there with stuff where I'm like, this is a really reasonable, cool price for this. And it's one of those cool record stores where it's records, but they also have like tons of dusty old VHS tapes and like graphic novels and books. So it's like,
those are the fun places to dig. So much
yeah,
fun.
it's great. And they also have a punch card system, like a stamp, which is awesome. Like that's what's up. And I mean, I've also played with the idea of like maybe opening a brick and mortar at some point. But there's so much competition in Raleigh. There's so many stores here, good and bad. So I'm like, maybe I'm thinking maybe more out towards in the burbs where I'm at. There's less. So maybe that might be cool, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Wouldn't be anytime soon. That's for sure. But,
and you're going to be chained to it forever.
Right.
It's where you're going to be day in and day out.
Exactly.
Coming from a family that owned a store, they went from having a personal life to having no life. And I grew up in that store, and they spent every day there until they retired.
It was a convenience store, right?
Yeah, it was a convenience store, Mayfield store. Yep, selling beer and wine and booze and pizza and sandwiches and all that fun stuff.
Didn't they have like other employees or anything?
Yeah, they wouldn't last long though, because they didn't pay awesome, and it was always just a stop off. Being a clerk at a party store is just a stop off until your other resumes pan out, until the other jobs, the big money ones you put in for, take off.
Yeah.
So
I've definitely worked at my share of jobs like that, and I can attest to that.
Yep, for sure. Well, it's good to see everybody in the chat today.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. There's all these like independent conversations. I don't have anybody doing the watching my chat for me kind of deal, but like lots of discussions here. Let me just see if there's anything. There was some symphonic metal dissing, which I understand. I used to be in that boat.
Have some fun, people. It's okay to have fun listening to music. It's fun. It's okay.
I agree. Like any cross of metal and emo is like pretty gross. That's why like that early 2000s metalcore, I saw like a genre that was developing when I was a kid that was like really unique. I didn't like all of it, but all that stuff coming out of like Bloodlet and Undertow and all this like metallic hardcore stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's these weird processed, overproduced, like singy vocals into like fourth rate At the Gates rip off riffs and really bad, cheesy, like pit call out breakdowns. Like that wasn't a good time at all.
No, that survived for a hot second too.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the symphonic for me, my personal thing. And like, again, I kind of dipped my toe in it when it came out and then forgot about it. But I never got into In the Night Side Eclipse. Like when it was around, I got into Anthems to Welkin at Dusk.
Yeah.
And I liked it, but it was almost at the time, like I was listening to all this like grind and crust and stuff. And I was like, this is too much. Like all these horns, and I can't handle like I thought it was all right, but I never listened to it super often. I listened to a little bit of early Cradle of Filth. And then when I started the channel actually and started watching your videos and Ben's, I was like, you know what? I've missed out on all the hallmark bands of this genre. Like the only one that I really obsessed over and got into was Satyricon for whatever reason. Which is those first 3 Satyricon records are
classics.
Godly.
Yeah.
But I was like, I never even listened to Wrath of the Tyrant. I never really listened to. I bought.
That is a great demo. It's a great demo. It sounds shitty, but man, the songs are so good.
It's great. Not even necessarily symphonic stuff, but like all the basic entry level stuff, like De Mysterious, Dom Satanas. I bought that when it came out and was like, these vocals suck, and got rid of it. You know, like I had the tape on Century
See, I
Black, and
love
I
that
was
because of those vocals. It reminds me of Ogre from Skinny Puppy. He's
well, yeah,
definitely in that realm.
and I think he's stated as saying that was a definite influence. But I learned like I got into that stuff later and can appreciate it.
He had a
Now.
dance-oriented industrial band called Plasma Pool. They put out 2 CDs. Very good. And you could tell it's like a dancier version of Skinny Puppy with him with Attila singing on it. And you could tell that Ogre is, you know, where he got a lion's share of his influence from.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Vargrov's another newer kind of symphonic or synthy kind
They're
of band.
great, but I mean the Finnish scene, I love Finnish black metal, but it's questionable, man. The Finns they've got a sketchy streak about them, and I think that Vargrav's got Satanic Warmaster in it, which
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah, nah.
he is what he is. He's a great, he knows what good black metal is, but he's got some questionable political, social, whatever leanings.
Yeah, I don't know what it is particularly about Finland where like it
I don't
just
know.
seems to breed that stuff, like more so than any other Scandinavian country. I
It's
mean,
weird.
I think that presence is there in that region, you know, a fair amount regardless, but particularly Finland, I don't know. It's also like the biggest country for metal. Like metal's the biggest
Yeah.
cultural export from there, you know.
And those Vargrav records, a couple of people brought them. They're great. Both those records are great. There's no denying how good they are. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. There was another modern symphonic band. Again, I tried to think of it last. Their cover looks like some Ravenloft type of shit, and their CD.
Well, that's
CD
all of them. That's all of them, by the way.
Right? Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, that's the funny thing. How much art was actually directly lifted from the Ravenloft campaign setting, like from the rule books and stuff.
Right.
I mean, Burzum. Who else? Necromantia. You know, there's I'm sure many others. But no, it's a newer band. My mush of a addled brain can't ever remember the name of it, but I thought it was funny because it was like a slipcase CD, very vampiric looking, and I'm like, it comes with a map.
Yeah. Oh, the Storm Keep. Is that it? The dude is the drummer from Blood Incantation's band, Storm Keep. It came with a map.
Storm Keep, right.
Like, wow, this map, I'll never look at this again. It's like, why is this even in here? I don't get it.
I don't know. I love it. I love that there is a map. Like anything with a map, I'm like, awesome. Sweet. What am I following along with here? Like,
right, exactly.
Lyrics that's relevant to this, or should I get miniatures? Are we playing Warhammer? Like, what's going on?
Where's my miniatures? Did I get the wrong? I didn't get the Die Hard edition. Holder is great. They're great. She's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. I have a demos CD that, again, like I have a certain threshold with like rawness in black metal where I'm like, I can't really do this. Like a lot of most of the LLN stuff and a lot of that newer Portuguese stuff, I'm like, I
find that funny because I mean, you listen to like old raw, dirty punk demos that are just as raw.
It's a different kind of rawness. It depends. Like some of the LLN stuff I can listen to. Some of it is too much.
Some of that LLN shit's just out of tune and fucked up. I mean,
yeah,
it's a train wreck. You know,
it's poorly played almost on purpose. You know, in a lot of cases. Trying to think what else. I don't know. So it depends. I tried. I was walking through I figured it was appropriate. I was going on a hike through the woods, and I was like, I'll listen to the Holder demos and rehearsals thing, and I was like, this is just not hitting me right now. So you
need to check out the proper full length. It's produced well and the songs are way better.
Oh yeah, no, I have that too. I have the full length, the first full length or whatever. Well, the new one's an EP, but I have the full length on $20 spin, and yeah, it's great.
It's way head and shoulders better than the demo. So although I did like the raw nature of the early stuff, I think her songwriting has improved a lot for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a good project. That was from the era almost a year ago now, maybe 9 or 10 months ago, when my life got eaten by Elden Ring. So that was actually kind of good for my listening taste because I was so absorbed in that game, and I listened to like 6 or 7 records perpetually in my 5-disc changer. The Holder was one of them. The new Father Befouled, which was fantastic.
I still have not heard that.
It's
I
great.
dropped the
I think
ball
it's the
on
best
that.
one yet that he's done. The latest Immolation, which is also a really strong record.
A bit
Um,
long, but good. I like the
yeah,
last one better. I thought the last one was a little bit more adventurous for them, but I do like the new one. It's good.
yeah. I think they got back to like being a little bit more riffy and catchy with that latest Immolation. But I mean, I liked everything they've done, especially in the recent past there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, the new blood incantation is not what I think people expected. I still haven't even heard it.
Yeah, I don't really care. I mean, I'm sure it's fun, fine, but I just not in the mood.
Yeah. Poppy Blitz for blood incantation.
Yep.
Raw for the sake of being raw without attention to songwriter production rubs me the wrong way too. Yeah, I agree. That's why a lot of times, again, you talk about the punk side of things. It's taken me forever to kind of develop an appreciation for that really raw D-beat stuff. You know, if I was going to check out bands that had that particular rhythmic attack, it was either going to be the OGs like Discharge, or it was going to be some band that kind of wove in other influences like Tragedy.
Yep.
And I mean, you get into like all the Swedish Mongol stuff and all that kind of shit. It's cool, but I am very selective. I think, you know, there bands like Frompted from Japan, I think are really like masters of the craft of like using noise in such a way that actually makes the music engaging. Disclose is another big one, but it took me forever to really appreciate that because it's repetitive. I mean, in a way, I think there's certain parallels with a lot of the kind of hypnotic, repetitive black metal stuff that was prominent. You know, all the bands that kind of took notes from Vaughn, like early Dark Throne, you know, and that kind of stuff.
Boy, that Vaughn, man, there's some catchy moments, but 1 to 2 riffs per song maximum. It's kind of a good thing they didn't go any further than they did because they had kind of just a small voice of what they were doing.
Yep. Yeah, it's I have that reissue. Apparently that goes for a lot now, the one that came out on Nuclear War Now.
Oh, really?
I guess like and I mean I don't really spin it very often, but when I was getting back into metal, you know, late 20s, early 30s, and I was on the Nuclear War Now board a lot, I started reading about that band. I had no idea like their influence or anything like that. I was like, okay, cool. And I definitely appreciate it, but I think their recorded output is perfect. It's like,
yeah.
And I know they came back and did some other stuff, and they had kind of a weird split with like one guy fighting over the name. It was another one of those stupid scenarios. But I'm cool with those early demos, but I don't really mess with anything else. You know, obviously I think it was a case of a band. Their influence, the bands that they influenced, kind of far surpassing anything they did. You know.
Sure. Absolutely.
Gloom. Oh yeah, Gloom. I always forget about Gloom. That's another one of those noisy D-beat bands. There's Zionos is one that I like had trouble getting into. They're talking about like the really almost kind of noise oriented ones. Yeah, I mean, like I got a whole bunch of CDs from Mortville Noise, the guy who runs that, and it's like a grindcore label from Iowa. He's friends with Ben. He's like, I don't know if you like it. It's a little bit more noise oriented than the other stuff you have from my label. And I was expecting a lot more like Man is the Bastard feedback and like weird electronic stuff. And it's all just like crazy grindcore and like fastcore and power violence stuff, some of which is just really poorly recorded. And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally on board for all this stuff.
Nice. Cool.
Just because, you know, I like blast beats. I like really short songs. So people also use the noise thing, I think, in that conversation. It can be confusing because you talk about noise and people sometimes think power electronics. People sometimes think like a certain brand of hardcore. There's noise rock, you know, Amphetamine Reptile and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, noise to me is someone standing over a table twiddling knobs. That's noise.
Yeah, that is where I don't really fuck with much myself.
I have a respect for it, but I never find myself wanting to listen to it. I just don't.
Yeah, and I have friends, you know, that have kind of delved into that world. A lot of people that kind of retired from hardcore and got really into like weird neo folk and shit like that. Some of it is pretty interesting. I think when it's a little bit more on the mellow side, and it's maybe a little, oh yeah, Full of Hell. That's a good example of a band that plays with a couple of other ones. But
I like it when it starts getting into dark ambient realms where there's more atmosphere to it. That's where my ears are. It's a happy zone for that.
Yeah, I just remember hearing about like Zeni Jiva and all this stuff. Like the early Relapse catalogs pushed that stuff just as much as they pushed metal when it was still like a photocopied bunch of.
I miss those days. Those days were awesome.
Because I would just read descriptions and be like, "What is this?" Like
I'd sit on the toilet with the highlighter. I get to get this and this 7-inch, and then they'd have the buy 2 get 1 7-inch free type deals. I was, going through getting all these 7 inches and stuff back then, and God, those were the fun days.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is still kind of like a mystery to me. I was like, what does Namanax sound like?
Right.
But actually that Stalingrad record I talked about recently, that's interesting because it's like metallic hardcore. It could be along the lines of like anywhere from like Acrid or the German metalcore stuff, and as well as like even some Integrity. But then there's some power electronics dudes that guest on the record. I think they were from a UK band or UK recording unit called Con-Dom, which I've heard of, but
okay,
they're involved with that somehow, and they're doing like interludes and stuff, and it's this like really moshy, angry, like hardcore, and there's like 2 people from the crust band Doom involved in it. It's like cool. Like this is something. None of these ingredients make any sense. This is awesome.
No, that's cool though. Trying different things.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I don't want to cut it short, but Amanda is going to be running off to get some lunch with some coworkers. So I should dip out. This has been a very pleasant conversation.
Oh yes, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for being on. Everybody, great. Like lots of people talking, lots of discourse going on here. Fraser, Dead Horse rules. I love that band. Codpiece Face is a jam. We'll be back next week. I don't know who I'm going to have. Probably talking to the Titus Bros. Now that I have this paid StreamYard thing, I can record these at any time and just air it when I want. So it doesn't have to be somebody that I track down and, forced to have a conversation with me right in the afternoon kind of deal.
And hey, people in the chat, do notice that Pat has implemented super chats. So kick this brother over some cash, get his distro going. So if you appreciate the content, definitely send him some skrill for sure. We appreciate it. And I appreciate seeing everybody, a lot of familiar faces in the chat. Very cool.
Of course, killing it with the best comments. Discourse is the people. Boom.
Yep. Boom. Yep. Old Tom nails it every time.
Best one-liners in the fucking business, man. That's great. All right.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, Pat. We appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Marty. I'll be talking to you soon.
Right on, brother. Have a good one, everybody.